The Trail of Egypt. They came down. Some through this way. A majority of them down this way. And they settled around here, around the Niger River. On the top, some over here, some over here. This is where the ancient Egyptians went, to the Igbo Ukwu Empire. Africa. Up here, you would have the Libyan desert, which they would have avoided and went through a different desert, down through Sudan or down all the way to Ethiopia, and then would have crossed. You see what I mean? That's why you have Ethiopians somewhere over here in East Africa, Northeast Africa. And so the Nubians and ancient Egyptians went down and crossed and ended up here. And some of them ended up in South Africa, the Lemba tribe, and some of them ended up in Ethiopia. So the Igbos are more significant than the Ethiopians as far as being close to God and the image of God. And I'll tell you why. The difference between Igbos and Ethiopians is the Ethiopians were mixed with Arabs and other races. They're basically almost the same people. So as far as the land of Ethiopia, it's more relevant to the Bible. But as far as the people, I would say the Igbos who migrated to Nigeria before archaeologists could record them, which would put them in the 5,000, 6,000 BCE, because as I showed you in my other videos, the top archaeologists from colleges and people who put out articles, they are in agreement that they can't figure out where the Igbos came from. This points to a ancient migration from Northeast Africa, which is exactly what my argument is. So the only way they could have got there, and the only people they could have been, bingo. End of story. This is the ancestors of, this is the descendants of Menzies. Their ancestors were Menzies and Djoser in the first, second, third, fourth dynasty of Egypt. People like Imenhotep. This is where you have them. And then in Nigeria, you know, you have Benue State and Benin and Aba and Jos and etc. You have these different small cities and big cities like Lagos and Abuja, and you have different cities that take. They have different demographic populations, demographics. Now, once you understand that the irrefutable privileges of being the descendant of the ancient Egyptians should be given to the descendants of the ancient Egyptians. And to say that the Igbos are not the descendants of the ancient Egyptians is inadequate. Until you can prove that there's another explanation for the sideways cross, for the linguistics, for the etymology, for the migrations, for the anthropological evidence, for the evidence in art and statues, until you can prove there is another source for the system of writing, for the ritualistic dances and sacred ground, and metal casting, bronze work, alchemy, copper, until you can show me that the inhabitants of the Igbo Ukwu era and their metal working art, which went on through the 9th century, until you can show me where that came from, and that it did not come from ancient Egypt, then you are a fucking liar to assume that any other descendants are ancient Egyptian other than the Igbos, the Yoruba, and the southern Niger, the people who live in Niger on the southern region. And perhaps some people of Cameroon, Ethiopia, and the Lemba tribe. Until you can show me evidence that that is not the case, then you have to understand that even simple-minded people understand this. If you go to Africa, this is not news. This is news to the people who have been brainwashed by the white man's technology, the APEP type of thinking, school of thought. Now, look at Alice Apley's article. She talks about a lot of the stuff I was talking about, like the pendants, the crowns, the breastplates, staff ornaments, swords, fly whisk candles, etc., etc., beads, and talk about the slavery. Okay, where did the slaves come from? The white man didn't steal the slaves. There was already a vast empire selling slaves in religious items and trading religious scrolls and documents. This is partly how the white man came across some of the knowledge that he gathered. So you understand that West Africa and Central Africa are the locations of the current descendants of the ancient Egyptians, with, of course, small percentages in places like America, Canada. You know, every country in the world has small percentages of African black people and of people who are related through other bloodlines to the ancient Egyptians, other than black, which is very few and far between. I once saw a video where a white man was claiming that he was a descendant of some ancient Egyptians and that there was 53 tribes and one of them was white and the rest were black. So there's interesting points of view and other people who have their point of view, but mine is the true point of view because I've had the knowledge. I grew up with the knowledge. I grew up with tales from Africa. I grew up with swords from Africa. I understand the African culture, the African way, the white man's way, the white man's school system, the African school system, the white man's writing system, the African's writing system. I understand ancient Greek and how it differs from Latin, which most of our languages are derived from, like French, English, Spanish. Okay, you understand what's going on here. German. Okay, I understand this. Why do these people have these accents? Why do they have this certain genetic structure which is commonplace for them? It has to do with families and migrations of families and tribes. The Huns, the Aryans, the Visigoths, the Mongols, okay, the Ming family, the Ting, the Hans, the Chans, on and on. And you have great voyages that were undertaken by Asian dynasties where they visited West Africa, and so on and so forth. Understand that Igbo is central to ancient Egypt, in that to allow the Igbos and the South Sudanese, who made their own country, New Sudan, to allow the people in Darfur to be slaughtered is like allowing the devil to kill the children of Heru. It's allowing Apep, Set, Tot to kill the children of Heru. Waheh and Hehet and Osiris and Ra and Amen-Ra and Apis and Hathor and Bastet, they all look on. Herket, Sarket, on and on. Nuts, Jeb, Shu. Understand what is going on. Who is looking on? There's one creator God. Akhenaten can almost be compared to the devil because he took the temple out of the sacred ground. That's why they hated him so much. That's why the cults betrayed him and Nefertiti. That's why the cults set up Nefertiti. That's why they set up They set up Akhenaten to die. Understand this. That's why Ramses the Great was known as Ramses the Great, inspired by the Spirit of God. So was Menzies. God allowed early African civilizations. It was when the white man and the other people started entering the picture that God said, no, we're not going to let you scum build your tower. No, we're not going to let you Roman filth have your way. No, we're not going to let you Greeks corrupt the ancient Greek and African way. No, no, no. No Persia. No. No Assyria. Bad Babylon. Bad.
And when the whites start coming into Egypt, bad Egypt, you turn to dust, you turn to sand.